It's a new week, which means it's time for a brand new edition of Technoholik. And I know every single week we keep telling you that it's a special episode. But this week, it's a special episode for me because we have the iPad 2. Sagar is super excited. Look at it.
Not as excited as you, but obviously I have the only rival to the iPad 2. And that is the iPad 1. So let's see who wins this fight.
Let's see who wins this fight indeed. Before we get into this fight, take a look at what's coming up on the show today. Coming up on Technoholik, is Research in Motion a strong contender in the tablet race? Abhimanyu gets us a preview of the playbook all the way from Blackberry World in Florida. Mortal Kombat is back and it's bloody gory. We get you the full game review for all you Sonya Blade fans. But up first, the new iPad 2 is officially available in India now. Let's dive straight into the specs and get you that review.
3 months after its launch in the West, iPad 2 finally lands in India. The second generation iPad is thinner at just 8.4 mm and with a flatter back. iPad 2 features a 9.7-inch multi-touch display and is powered by a 1 GHz dual-core Apple A5 processor. In addition, the iPad 2 has front and rear-facing cameras. The camera at the back captures HD videos at 720p, while the camera in front does VGA recording and still images. The iPad 2 will be available in 3 storage variants: 16GB, 32GB and 64GB. 16GB Wi-Fi is priced at Rs 29,500, 32GB at 34,500 and 64GB at 39,500 rupees. The Wi-Fi plus 3G variant is priced at Rs 37,000 for 16GB, 42,000 rupees for 32GB and 47,000 rupees for the 64GB iPad 2.
Okay, so as we promised, I'm going to give you the review of the iPad 2. Now, straight off the box, the first thing that you'll notice is this is very, very thin. It's actually a significant change from the earlier iPad. The weight is just perfect and the way you hold it in your hand is very, very nice. Now, most people would not want to buy a new iPad just for a design change, but I think this design change is very well deserved. It actually makes the device look much better. Sagar, approve of the design change?
Yes, see, I've held it for some time, but I haven't used it for as long as you have. But what I felt was, yes, as soon as you hold it, it sits in your hand much, much better.
Much better this time.
And see, the gadget, I mean, if you're keeping this on your lap, it's all good. But if you're going to be keeping it here, the design of that iPad is much, much better.
As we know, the same OS is also available on the iPad, so 4.3 is available there too. So you're not going to have considerable changes in the OS. But under the hood, it has an A5 graphics processor, which is pretty fast. We have used it, and also it has front and back cameras. So let's start with the A5 processor first. Now, the older edition of the iPad had the A4 processor, and that was fast enough too. Now the question is the A5 faster than the A4? Of course yes, but you're not going to notice that much of a change because people who use the iPad are satisfied with that much enough of graphics power. If we're not denying the fact that this is fast, but if you compare it to the other one, it's definitely faster, but you're not going to miss that A4 processor that much that you would want an A5. 2 cameras on this now. There's front and back cameras. The back camera is capable of doing 720p HD video, and the front camera is capable of using FaceTime. Now, most people, let's face it, even though we like the idea that there's FaceTime, won't use it that much. Although there are so many ads playing on television that you can do video calls on 3G, 1% of all of us will probably try to do that. So, having the back camera on an iPad, I've always felt that in tablets, having a back camera is a good gimmick factor, but I would necessarily not be the one to shoot like this. I wouldn't do that.
No, Radhika, you're perfectly right with this
I wouldn't
one.
do that.
See, basically, whenever you hold a tablet which is as large as this one, having a camera over here, you're never going to shoot photographs with this.
Exactly.
Most of the times, you have a phone to shoot your photographs with your megapixel counts going till 12 megapixel. The best part about photo booth is the fact that you look at what you're doing.
Yes, it's a whole, everybody gathers around behind the camera and you click a nice picture.
So I think the most important camera on this iPad is the frontal cam.
Most important functions of the front camera, you could use it to do video calling, you can use it for Skype. Even if you don't use FaceTime, which is a nicer gimmick to use over Wi-Fi, you would still end up using the front camera much more than the back camera. Now that we've talked about the camera, we've talked about the processor, and we've talked about how the way this looks, now let's get to the eternal question, which is, the first iPad is now available for 24,000 rupees. This iPad, that is the 16 GB Wi-Fi version, let's compare base prices, is available for 29,500. Now the question is, since the iPad 2 has come considerably faster than the iPhone 4, is this the time to buy the iPad 1 or the iPad 2? My answer, buy the iPad 2 if you're a first-time user, because it's just $5 grand extra.
If you want to go ahead and buy a new first-hand iPad, the iPad 2 is the one to go and buy. But if you are looking for, well, if you already have the iPad 1,
keep it.
Keep it.
Till a very big revolutionary iPad comes out.
This is not that big upgrade to go and sell your iPad 1 and go and buy an iPad 2. But hey, if you like to stay ahead of the curve,
go and buy the iPad 2.
Me saying that is not going to stop. But obviously, Radhika, you did not show what was the star attraction in the iPad 2.
That is, these are called smart covers. Okay, and they're really smart because there are covers and then there are covers that Apple makes, right? So, this is the smart cover made of really good material, and now, we've already seen the video when we talked about the iPad 2 much earlier in the show, and Abhi was completely against the fact that we're going to buy a new iPad because of a smart cover. Well, I know that he doesn't like Apple devices very much because he thinks they just overcharge us for everything, but I think this is really, really cool because look at this, okay? It won't click on unless it finds the right place. If you take it off, if you do this, it won't click on. If you do this, it won't click on. Just has to find the right spot and slap it. And there you go. And it also talks to your iPad, which means it shuts it down when the cover is on top.
And the best part is that it can fold over
to make a nice little stand.
To make a nice little stand, which looks really, really cool. I mean, if you look at this, it looks really cool. So this is the reason I'm sold on the stand.
What we're saying about the iPad 2, to sum it up, is that it's not a major upgrade over the iPad, but for a first-time user, it's still a very good device. Also, if you're going to consider other options, make sure the camera is not something that you're considering as a major factor. Now, the price of the 16 GB iPad 2 is about 29,500, and the 64 GB 3G plus Wi-Fi goes all the way up to 44. And the older version, that's the first iPad 16 GB, is available for 24,000. Okay, so that's the review of the iPad 2, and both of us are convinced that the iPad 2 is a good device altogether. But the only one who needed convincing was Abhimanyu, because he hated it when Steve Jobs announced the iPad 2. Now, he is in Blackberry World in Florida, and he's checking out the Blackberry Playbook.
Okay, well, I love that gadget since I'm a big BlackBerry fan, and I've been waiting for this gadget to come out. But obviously, you, Varun, and Abhimanyu, all of you guys sat on the show and banned that gadget. So I'm obviously waiting with bated breath to see what Abhimanyu has to say.
We did not ban it without any definite reason. But Abhi, most of the internet, everyone in every single blog has been saying very bad things about the Playbook. Is that your opinion, or are you going to change that completely?
Well, okay, I could blame it on the hot weather out here in Orlando, Florida, home of Disney World. Or I could say that it's penance for, having to eat crow after telling Sagar, along with Varun, of course, that he's a lunatic for actually saying the BlackBerry Playbook looked cool. Now, all of us read the reviews in the American media because we haven't got our hands on it yet. And I must say that this is a great lesson for everybody who makes a judgment from reading other people's reviews, because when I got my hands on this, apart from the fact that this 7-inch form factor was much better than an identical 7-inch from Samsung, the Galaxy Tab, the one thing that jumped out and hit me about the Playbook was the operating system. QNX, acquired by Research in Motion. It's a dual-core processor, and their other tablets have dual-core as well. But show me which other tablet can do this. I mean, it's incredible. I've gone into the multitasking mode. In other tablets, multitasking is just to see the icons of the other programs that are open. Here you're seeing live previews of the screens. I'm actually manipulating the car in Need for Speed. This is a high-end DEA NFS game. I'm changing it, and it's still minimized. I can go into there, press play on a flash video. The flash experience in the browser, better than on Android tablets. The video is going to load. I can still have it playing in the background in that browser and still manipulate my car in Need for Speed. Sure, you might say that, hey, when are you actually going to have a usage situation like that? But it just shows you the sheer power of this operating system, QNX. And developers, if you haven't got onto this platform yet, I think you should explore it. In fact, that's the only problem. Not enough developers are developing right now for the Playbook, so the App Store looks a bit bare, as you can see over there. Not too many apps, but with the browsing and the multitasking on this, the Playbook is seriously going to give Apple a run for its money. Sure, it had a few problems. You needed to originally tether through the BlackBerry to get your email onto it. They're going to change that in an update in the summer. They're going to bring the Android App Store onto this in the interim. There are issues, but just on sheer computing power and beauty of the screen and the experience and that wow factor that hits you, which you'll never see from reading somebody else's review, I think the Playbook is fantastic. It's going to launch probably even this month in India, and by then hopefully I'll have had enough time to give you a more in-depth review on this show. But on the preview, thumbs up, possibly in my opinion, once I test it out. On first glimpse, I can say it looks more impressive than the iPad 2 and maybe even every other Android tablet out there.
But if you're not very convinced on the Playbook and you only want to stick to phones, Abhi also caught up with the BlackBerry World 4, didn't you, Abhi?
Well, of course, apart from the big Playbook announcement, guys, there was also the new Bold 4, and I must say, I think it looked a little inspired by the iPhone 4, especially the design on the edges, that whole stainless steel flat look. And of course, they were upgraded to a new operating system, BBOS 7, which will do all the cool new things with the Playbook, and of course have much tighter Bing integration. Bing will be the default search engine, the maps, the location-based stuff. And Steve Ballmer himself was here. You don't see Microsoft CEO at the annual sort of conference of a much smaller company like RIM, but it looks like the non-Apple, non-Google alliance is forming by guys trying to band together. Even Facebook, for instance, the first tablet-optimized app they have done is not for Android, not for iPhone or iOS, but for the Berry. So sort of a third front is forming here. People who don't want to hitch their ship to either Android or to iOS, and it's pretty decent gang that they've assembled. And Bing may not be right up there with Google right now, but the fact is that they are improving. Their search is pretty good. Their maps are getting there as well. So it looks interesting going forward to see how the Playbook, the new BlackBerry OS, the Bold, the operating system will eventually merge into QNX. But this is a sort of touch-and-go phase for RIM, where they'll be hoping that their core enterprise customers sort of stick with them and give all employees a Playbook. And in the meanwhile, these employees evangelize it and show it to other consumers who look at it and say, wow, we want one of these. And that's pretty much how it happened for the BlackBerry handsets, at least. So yeah, everybody at the conference got one free. It was a big Oprah moment. And of course, we at Technoholik, return everything we get or give it away. So this becomes our sort of demo piece, which when I come back, I promise I'll let Sagar play around with it as well, since he's the guy who predicted that this will probably be a big win.
Okay, so at the end of this very large iPad 2 segment, the verdict is out. It's a good device if you're a first-time user, and if you have an iPad, stick to your original ones. And there's another contender in the race too. That's the BlackBerry Playbook. Abhimanyu seems to love it. Well, I just have to say that until I get my hands on that device completely, I'm going to stick to my opinion of saying no to the BlackBerry Playbook. And with that, we have to wrap up this segment. But coming up next, news of the week, and of course, a very special game review.